Hi guys, Oma here. Today we're going to make this cute little octopus. As we follow along with my written pattern, let's get started. First we will need some yarn, and I'm using this really soft, pretty velvet yarn, and I'm using the color red. You can use any color you'd like. A 4.0 millimeter crochet hook, 8 stitch markers of the same color for your 8 tentacles, 1 stitch marker of a different color for your working yarn, 2 10 millimeter safety eyes, a pair of scissors, a tapestry needle, and some polyester fiber fill. All of these supplies can be found in the kits I put together, except for the scissors, as well as a link to the printable PDF and the YouTube instructional video. You can find all of the kits on my website at omascozycreations.com. Now let's get started. Okay, we're going to start with a magic ring, and if you don't know how to make the magic ring, I have an instructional video for that, and I've given you the link to the instructional video in the description of this video down below. So, and there's our magic ring. I'm going to tighten it up a little bit. Okay. Now I'm going to put 6 single crochets in the center of my ring. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then I'm going to mark the last stitch of that round. Tighten our ring. Not too tight though. And then our round 2 says we need 6 increases. So we're going to put 2 single crochets in every stitch. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, and 6, 7, and 8, 9, and 10, 11, and 12. Okay, so you should have 12 stitches at the end of round 2. We're going to move our stitch marker to the last stitch of that round. There we go. Round 3 says we're going to do a single crochet followed by an increase. And that's the pattern we're going to follow all the way around. So we're going to do 1 single crochet, followed by one increase, and that's our pattern. One single crochet, one increase. Okay, so we finished round 3 and we have 18 stitches. Now we're going to move our stitch marker to the last stitch of that round. Round 4 says we're going to do 2 single crochet followed by an increase, and then we're going to follow that pattern all the way around, and we should have 24 stitches at the end of that round. I'm going to go ahead and pause, and I will meet you at the end of this round. Okay, so we finished round 4 and we have 24 stitches. We're going to move our stitch marker to the last stitch of that round, and round 5 says to do 25 single crochet. We're going to do that for round 5, round 6, round 7, and round 8. And I'm going to pause here, and I will meet you at the end of round 8. Okay, so we've finished round 8, and now we're ready to start row 9. Excuse me. So we move our stitch marker to the back, to the last stitch of that round. Just stuff your tail in the middle there. And it says to do 1 single crochet and 1 decrease. And I always try to do the invisible decrease. And again, there is an instructional video in the description for the invisible decrease. So there's 1 single crochet and then 1 decrease. 1 single crochet and 1 decrease. And you just keep going like that all the way around to the end of row 9, and I will meet you there. Okay, so we've come to the end of row 9. We're going to move our stitch marker to the last stitch of that row. And we should have 16 stitches when we are finished in that row. Now, go ahead and pull that out so you don't lose your space or lose your loop. We're going to start marking for the tentacles. So there's our 8 stitch markers. Okay, so we're going to mark the front loop only of every other stitch, and that will be our first one here. Remember, this is a decrease, so that is part of the last stitch. So we're going to mark only the odd ones. So that's 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7, front loop only, there's 8, there's 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, excuse me, 14, and 15. Okay, so we've marked 8 front loop only, and that will be our tentacles. Now we will get back to crocheting, so we're going to tighten that up around our hook, And I believe we are going to start row 16. No, row 10. Sorry about that. And row 10 says we're going to do 16 single crochets. So we're going to go in each stitch, do 1 single crochet. There, there. You want to make sure that you go back behind that stitch marker and not in front of it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that last stitch, and that is your row 10. So we're going to move our stitch marker to the last stitch of row 10. Row 11 says to do 16 back loop only single crochets, so that's the opposite of front loop only. So we're going to start right there. See how that's just the back loop? 1, 2. So we're going to move our stitch marker to the last stitch for row 11. Now here's where we ended our row, and I like to put the safety eyes on the opposite side. And it says to do the safety eyes between row 7 and 8. So we're going to count down. That was row 1, row 2, row 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So right there. Put that guy right there. And then it says to do it about 6 stitches apart. And all of this is approximate, so don't worry about it too much. If it looks good to you, that's good enough. Okay, so then we're gonna put the backs on those because we like where they are placed. Okay, so now we have the backs on those. That's where his eyes are. I like that. Now it says to start adding the stuffing. when we do this, we only want to add a little bit at a time, because if you try to jam it all in there at once, it will look a little lopsided and deformed, and it will be very difficult to shape it or move it around. Okay, I think I'm done with my stuffing. So now I'm going to move on to row 12. And row 12 is 8 invisible decrease. So we're going to start right there. Do that. And that. There's one invisible decrease. Sometimes I like to use my needle to find my stitch. There's our 8 invisible decreases. I can go ahead and take that stitch marker out completely. Now it says to tie off, and what I like to do is to slip stitch into the next stitch like that. You want to leave a little bit of a tail. Pull it through, then pull it tight. Then we will sew it closed by going through the front loop only of the next stitches, like that. Oops. That one, last one. Okay, then I pull it tight, and there you go. Now on my end, I will just feed it through one of these stitches and feed it through. Oops, got caught up on one of my stitch markers. And do that a couple of times. That way we know it's not coming loose. Then you can cut the end off. And usually with a little squeeze or two, it just pulls right back in. There you go. So that is our octopus head. Now we're going to start on the tentacles. Okay, so we're going to do a standing single crochet. We'll make a slip knot. Put it on your hook, tighten it up, find that first stitch. We're going to feed it in through that first stitch marker, just like that. And then pull that around, pull it tight, hold it down with that finger, yarn over, pull it through one loop, yarn over, then pull it through 2 loops, and there is your standing single crochet. from there, we're going to chain 20. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, there are your 20 single crochets. And you're going to start at the second chain from your hook, and you're going to do an increase in that chain. There's 1, and there's 2 in there. And you're just going to go down the row, down the line, and you're going to do an increase in every chain. So I'll go ahead and pause here, and I'll meet you down at the bottom. Okay, so I am down at the bottom, and I have 1 stitch left, and I thought we would do that one together. So right there, squeeze in there. There you go. And you'll do 1, and then do a second one. There you go. Now, we're going to slip stitch into the next 2 stitches on this row. But this is our connecting row, so it's not going to show exactly right. But there's a slip stitch anyway. Now we're going to find the next stitch marker for the next tentacle, and we're going to slip stitch into that one as well. So, and slip, pull it tight, and now you're ready to chain 20, and we're going to chain 20 and then do 20 increases all the way down, and we're just going to repeat that for every tentacle all the way around. I'll go ahead and pause now and get my tentacles done, and I'll meet you at the end of your 8th tentacle. Okay guys, so we finished up our 8 tentacles, and I am right here where I would slip into the next stitch, and we're going to go ahead and do that. Slip it right into that next stitch right there, and right there we go. That's, and now we're going to slip into the very first stitch that we made, the first tentacle right there, and we're going to slip stitch into there. There's that, and there's that. Okay, so now we're going to cut the yarn right about there, and we're going to pull it through and tied it off. Now we're going to take these 2 ends and tie them together in a box knot, and then I'm gonna, makes it easier when they're even, thread my needle with both ends There you go. Now we're just going to feed it through one of these stitches that's fairly close, and just kind of go all the way through with them, and that just kind of hides them. And then we will cut them off there, these ends. Squeeze it up, and I hope you all have 8 tentacles, because if not, then you don't have an octopus. And go ahead and take out all your stitch markers. Okay, there is your octopus. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I hope it has helped you with your project. And till next time.